Hello and welcome to the Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group's UCMC's podcast, where our analysts convene to delve into the realms of Russian disinformation, propaganda, and the influence of hybrid warfare in 2024. In these short podcast episodes, no longer than 15 minutes, the team explores recent observations and analysis, sharing their expert opinions and conclusions on the challenges within the information sphere today. And today we will center the conversation around Russian propaganda and their Kremlin-backed Telegram channels targeting Ukrainian refugees in Poland and the Czech Republic. I'm your host, Matt Wickham, and I am joined by my colleagues and analysts, Nastya and Anton, analysts of UCMC. So we all know that thousands of Ukrainians left at the start of the full-scale invasion by Russia in 2022 to the Czech Republic. Quite mildly speaking, left and set up their new lives there. 380,000 by latest statistics. And then you've got also in Poland, over 900,000. Those are the placed second and third countries in terms of numbers of Ukrainian refugees staying in Poland and Czech Republic. Today, we're going to go into more information about what Russian Telegram channels are saying and how they are trying to discredit the Ukrainian refugees living abroad. Anton, if you can kick off today's conversation for us.
To begin with, I want to say that using Telegram to spread disinformation in both the Czech Republic and Poland demonstrates a really strategic approach by Russian propagandists. To use the platform's largely unregulated environment, this contributes the formation of radicalized communities, which will further destabilize the domestic political situation in European Union. A good example would be how this narrative worked in the case of European farmers, whose protests were covered by the Kremlin almost exclusively as a fight against Ukrainian agro products. Russian Telegram channels are trying to destabilize the European political scene to influence public opinion about Ukraine, and pro-Kremlin Telegram channels try to use populist narratives about the economy or domestic conflicts. Sometimes Russian messages are based on wholly fabricated facts, but sometimes they are use real facts but distorted to achieve the desired effect. So, for example, Russian Telegram channels systematically spread the narrative that Ukrainian refugees do not want to work, but only receive payments from the European states. However, studies indicate that more than 2/3 of Ukrainian refugees are fully or partially employed in Poland and Czech Republic. So Russian propaganda often tries to directly or indirectly support opposition forces, unless they are radically anti-Russian. This is because their rhetoric, opposition rhetoric, is based chiefly on local issues such as economy. So that's allowing Kremlin channels to use opposition statements as additional arguments to discredit the current government. And also Kremlin Telegram channels often base their statements about the attitude toward Ukraine in the European Union on the words of exclusively pro-Russian parties such as Confederation in Poland. These tactics of false generalization allows more weight to be given to further fake news on the topics, and the creation of artificial tension around the cost of supporting Ukrainian refugees is typical of all Ukrainian propaganda about all Russian propaganda about Ukrainians in the European Union and beyond. The Kremlin's information campaigns are trying to use every informational pretext that will make it possible to discredit Ukraine and Ukrainians, as Polish, Czech, and Ukrainian researchers have already written.
It's completely true what you're saying there about the whole issue of apparently the Europeans funding the Ukrainians' life for them just living in the country and living off benefits and beyond, because obviously we see that in America as well, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who uses that as one of her narratives constantly, that why are we funding their way of life there and we separating the narrative. Okay, thank you very much, Anton. And Nastia, let's bring you into the conversation.
Yes, thank you, Matt. I take a word or two about classic propaganda tactics Ukrainian uses in Poland and Czech Republic. And it's important to mention that in every country the situation with Russian narratives is similar, because Kremlin uses the same narratives, simply adapting them to the local context. The Polish internet space is full of manipulations every day aimed at sowing doubts and fear among the public, in particular regarding the influx of Ukrainian refugees. These reports often push the narrative that Ukrainians can replace Poles in the labor market, reinforced by claims that Polish employers receive subsidies for hiring Ukrainians. Russian propaganda in Poland also uses probing communication to evoke an emotional reaction and aversion to Ukrainian among vulnerable social groups. Here, in this particular case, it is worth mentioning that the propaganda plot that Polish children with cancer are expelled from hospitals to treat Ukrainian children. And after the debunking, this fiction changes its format, but the Russians did not leave the topic of children because it works well for the emotional component. And another example of a localized information campaign against Ukrainians was the spread by Russian channels of accusing Ukrainians of setting fire to a logistic hub in the Polish city of Radom. The explanation of the involvement of Ukrainian refugees in the setting fire was justified by the recent strengthening of the rules regarding stay in Poland. It is also worth noting that when spreading disinformation about Ukrainians in Poland, Russians often use references to Stepan Bandera to emphasize the historical differences between Kyiv and Warsaw. Russian disinformation campaigns in Poland systematically depict Ukrainian refugees in a negative light. However, fake claims about serious crimes such as burglaries, assaults, and even rape, allegedly committed by Ukrainian refugees, are spreading on social networks. In this context of Poland, as it has experienced a severe migrant crisis caused by the actions of Belarus and Russia, Moscow is particularly active in spreading the message that Ukrainian criminality has set up flows of human trafficking and assistance to other migrants for illegal border crossing. And it was about Poland, but as I mentioned, in Czech Republic, situation is quite similar. And let's talk about it more detail. In the Czech Republic, the manipulation of public perception regarding Ukrainian refugees has been notably influenced by prominent figures like Tomio Okamura. Okamura, as a leader of the right-wing populist party Freedom and Direct Democracy, has been vocal in the media, asserting that Ukraine and Ukrainians are unnecessary for the Czech Republic. He often frames this narrative as a financial burden, claiming that Czech taxes are being diverted away from Czech to support Ukrainians, which furthers resentment and hostility. In addition to the usual narratives considered in the first part of our research, during monitoring, we noted that the Russian propaganda in the Czech Republic primarily relied on domestic conflicts to discredit them. A classic story can be called The Plot, where the Czechs treat people humiliantly if they suspect that they are Russian refugees. Ethnic conflicts have also become more widespread in the Czech Republic because a considerable number of Roma people live on its territory. And conflicts in Roma appears every few months in the Russian segment of Telegram. And also, similar to the Polish situation, Kremlin channels use the topic of children, but often this takes on even more radical manifestations. Based on the words of the pro-Russian ex-president of the Czech Republic, Miloš Zeman, Moscow threw into the country's information space the story about the rape of a 15-year-old girl by a Ukrainian boy. The purpose of such plots is to sow violence, which can destabilize the situation as a chain reaction. Also, Russian propaganda spread information about the burning of Ukrainian cars to sow fear among the refugees themselves and to turn them against the local population. At the same time, the uncertainty of the culprits might also indicate the activities of Russian agents, as was the case with the sabotage of the ammunition warehouse in Brebice in 2014.
Thank you very much, Nastya. Let me just bring this conversation to an end and conclude what you guys have brought to the table today. So basically, Russian propaganda on Telegram in Poland and Czech Republic uses this disinformation to destabilize society and manipulate the opinions about the Ukrainian refugees, So this tactic aims to exploit local fears and deepen divisions, showing a coordinated effort that could threaten European unity and hinder anti-propaganda efforts. Monitoring and reporting, therefore, are key to countering this influence. Many Russian state and pro-Kremlin channels, they spread targeted content in various languages, including for Russian speakers in the EU and also in occupied areas of Ukraine. This unchecked space allows hate speech and false information to then therefore spread, highlighting the need for us as a whole, as a community fighting Russian propaganda, to need for the better tools to uncover and stop these campaigns. So understanding how these narratives work in Poland and the Czech Republic helps us to see the wider impact of digital manipulation in geopolitical conflicts, such as Russia's full-scale invasion on Ukraine, and how they are trying to use their hybrid warfare influence to deepen the divide in Europe. Anyway, guys, as we said, short and sweet. Thank you for listening today, and see you soon.